Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Unspoken Truths of Digital Leadership, living the leadership values. So, I guess we'll talk about the unspoken truths of leadership, the dark side, and the learnings from dealing with conflict with integrity. And today, I have a very, very special guest with me. He's an inspirational, influential, and insightful entrepreneur, international keynote speaker, and magician, and someone that I've been following for a number of years, Vinh Giang. Welcome, Vinh.
Thanks, John. I love the intro. Short, sweet, and simple. I love it. So good to connect with you, brother.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I mentioned how much you inspired me on my speaking journey. And it took me a long time to reach out to you, to invite you, because there was a lot of times where I had this resistance where I feel like, oh, Vinh may be busy.
Right.
Absolutely
like, not.
or be like, maybe he just doesn't have time for this. And why would he come on my podcast? And there was all these thoughts and stuff that came into my head. I'm just like, hey, Vinh, brother, I'm working on this podcast project. Would you like to come on? And you said yes. I was just like, I was over the moon.
You know, I think we sometimes tend to put the people we admire on such high pedestals. And I do the same thing. There's people I admire. And John, to that point, it's funny. I've met so many of the people that I am inspired by, and you realize they're just human. You know, and it's the same thing. It's just they're human, and yeah, sometimes you get slightly disappointed, as I'm sure you will through our conversation.
Not a chance, never.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
There's a lot of stuff that I've learned from you, and I was just like, wow, this there's so much just amazed about your philosophy, your values, and everything that you do.
Thank you.
And before you started your entrepreneurship journey, before you even knew it was a thing, right?
Yeah.
How did you get started in being magician and magic and speaking?
Well, you know, if we start with magic, right? So to me, if you want to hear the magic story, we have to go back to when I was in my early teens.
Wow.
I was, you know, growing up as an Asian kid in a school that was predominantly Caucasians, I was very invisible, right? So invisible visually, invisible vocally. I was just invisible in every way. You know, I was never the center of attention. So as a result, I lacked a bunch of self-confidence. And I remember one day, I don't know if you remember this book in the library, but there was these books called Where's Wally?
Yep, I have that. I still have one in my corner right now.
Okay. Yeah. So when I was young, you know, during lunch, I wouldn't be out in the playgrounds. I would always be in the library. So I used to always try to get there as quick as I can to get the Where's Wally book so I can enjoy that. And I remember this one day, I got there late and I didn't get the Where's Wally book, and I was totally bummed, and I didn't know what else to do. And I remember a librarian kind of pointed me to this other section. I went there and I picked up a magic book. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And then I went through the magic book. I learned a trick, and it took me weeks before I had the confidence to go and show someone. But then I showed it a couple of my friends in school. And I remember, I'll never forget this moment where one of them said, oh my God, that's amazing. You're amazing. And I've never had anybody say that to me. And then the moment he said that to me, I was like, I am? Okay, cool. And Jono, I then obsessed about the world of magic. I just went, I want more of this. Because what he said to me, my friend at the time said to me, was an injection of self-confidence that I never received in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was into it. I was completely obsessed over it, and it actually became a problem. I got so into it that towards my university life, not to fast track, but when I got to my university life, I couldn't have a conversation with you if I didn't have a packet of cards in my hands.
Wow.
All of my value as a human being, all of my confidence was attached to the packet of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And what that meant was that I was contextually confident. So that when I had the packet of cards, that was the only time I was confident. So it was funny. It was a blessing, and then it became a curse. And then I needed to leave the packet of cards and go, oh, you know, I'm amazing too. It's not just the magic. So, but that was the journey of being a magician was born out of being invisible.
I can relate to that one because I was invisible because I was the only Chinese kid in my school. And especially in the late 80s, 90s, early 90s, when Bruce Lee and Jet Li and Jackie Chan and those was like on TV. That's when racism and bullying happened, because they were more prominent on TV, but also when that kind of culture never existed. And it brought inspiration to me because, you know, there were TV stars on the TV. I'm just like, wow, there's another Asian person like doing stuff on TV. It's like amazing. But it also became like a curse as well, because it was the bullying and the racial discrimination. I became invisible and my confidence was shot to bits. I had no confidence whatsoever. So I can relate to that. And then obviously I took up martial arts and started self-defense. So
I thought you could say they took a martial art and beat the crap out of them.
Yes, basically. And the rest was history.
Yeah. And now
it taught me to it was, you know, we know in the philosophy or spiritual sense is that things happen for us, right? And for us to have that issue, that problem, was a message to say, step up.
Well,
obviously,
you know,
I know that now.
What's funny is you said that about you know, the racism around Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. I just had an experience of that about a couple of months ago. Wow. I was in an elevator. And I was here in Australia. I was in an elevator, and obviously these guys were drunk, and they were drunk, and again, you know, they're like, "Oh, look, it's Jackie Chan," you know, and it's funny because I when I experienced this when I was younger, as a younger man, it used to make me really angry.
Yeah,
I used to get really like aggressive back, but I think what's interesting now, as I'd like to say I'm still a young man, but now as a older young man, I have a different perspective of it now, because to me, so something that I hear people say a lot, especially a podcast I listen to quite often, is Joe Rogan, is that hurt people hurt people. And the perspective shift I have now is just seeing how, wow, that for that person to be dishing out that kind of pain or that kind of mean things, I just think, my goodness, how awful must that person's life be? It must be so terrible for them to be kind of radiating this kind of awful energy. And in thinking that, I kind of go, oh, wow. So now I don't even react to it. Now to me, it's just kind of, you know, there's just a blank stare at them. Just, wow, that's awful.
Where did you develop this sense of calmness?
My dad.
Ooh.
Yeah, my mum and my dad. Not a lot of people know this, but I'll share something with you. So about 4 years ago, my dad came to me and said, "Sit down, boy." I was like, "Okay, who's dying?" And he goes, "No one's dying, you idiot." And he said something to me that I really didn't expect. Him and my mum said something I just blew my mind. First of all, he said, "Look, your brother and yourself, we won't be giving you any of the inheritance." And I was like, "Is this a negotiable thing, or is this 100%?" And you know, to give you context, my dad and his brothers have built very successful businesses. They built the first, Vietnamese Asian groceries here in South Australia, one of the first. And they went on to, you know, own pharmacies and commercial property and restaurants and takeaway stores and whatnot. So they built sizable wealth. And he said, "Look, you're not getting any of it. Mum and dad have been burdened by material things. If someone buys a Beamer, we need to buy a Beamer. Someone buys a Mercedes, we need to buy a Mercedes. Someone buys a boat, we need to buy a boat." And they said, "We're suffering, and we don't want you to go through the same suffering. Wealth will cripple your potential if we just give it to you. You need to build your own." So I was like, okay, cool. Very inspiring, but sure. I want some of it, but sure. And then he said to me something really profound. He said, "We're giving away our wealth. And more than this, son, mum and dad are no longer going to be mum and dad. we want to become monks. I was like, what? What? Wait,
Wow.
is this you getting back at me at the magician thing? I didn't do law and I became a magician. Is this a joke? I couldn't understand what was going on. And my mum and dad have become very influential figures in my life in that, I mean, they've always been, but now more so than ever. Because my dad said, I want to escape suffering. And my dad's been a devout Buddhist for many, many years now, over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so my dad gave away his possessions. He owns, 4 sets of clothing and a few sandals, and mum's the same. And I sent my dad to Thailand to learn the ways of Buddhism from Thầy Thích Nhất Hạnh from Thailand. And my dad said, the home you bought us, son, and sorry for rambling on, this is a powerful story of my life.
This is great stuff.
Oh, is it? And then so the home we got my parents, they kind of, got rid of that and bought a big piece of land. So they have a big piece of land right now in South Australia, and we're building a meditation center.
Wow.
Where my mum and dad are devoting their lives to teaching people how to meditate, to find peace.
Oh, I think that I know where to come next time I'm flying to Australia then, bro.
Oh, absolutely. And
wow, that's amazing.
When you ask me where my sense of calm comes from, it was developed because of my dad and my mum's journey to find their peace and calm. I did not honestly think my parents would teach me such a big lesson at this stage in life. And if I could, I could show you photos of them. To me, it's just unbelievable that at this point in my dad's journey, because when I look at my mum and dad's journey, they went from having everything in Vietnam.
Yeah.
They were entrepreneurs, right? They had noodle factories and whatnot. To have that all taken away, come to Australia with nothing, rebuild their empire, only to now give it away. Wow. So I was like, wait, what? So then I thought to myself, why am I so in this intense rush to build this massive castle when my dad built it only to then just give it away? So then it really made me reflect on my journey as an entrepreneur, as a leader in my family, in that I had like almost a fire under my ass going, I must build wealth, I must accumulate wealth, but then I just watched my own father just kind of give it all away. Like what's the point of it if we get to the end only to give it away? Why do we put ourselves under so much stress? Why do we have so much anxiety? What if there's another way? And I guess that to me symbolized why I came back to Australia and not, kind of stopped pursuing my career so intensely in the US. It's just, it's been quite the journey, Jono, and I'm so grateful to have parents who still teach me such valuable lessons this late in life.
I'm still learning from my parents. I although it's not, they don't educate me in a way, but I think it's how they raised me and through what they went through. And I'm sure we went through this briefly prior to this podcast interview. Was, they raised me on leveraged debt. And I think that takes a lot of risk and guts to do. I mean, that's something that I'm just like, do I want to do that as well? I mean, and it is, it's risky, that and stuff. It can cripple you and then destroy you. In which case, it has halted, but put some halt on some stuff. But it just made me reflect and be like, but I could stop right now and stop what I'm doing and stop what I'm pursuing with entrepreneurship and doing digital leadership and all this stuff, just for a few years, so that I could help them get back on their feet just a little bit better than they were previously. Now they're obviously in a better place, and I'm, they're quite set with or without me being around. They're okay. I mean, they won't go hungry or anything like that, so they're in a good place. And if I got hit by a car or whatever, like the next day, they're okay. I know they're gonna be fine. And I was like, I'm still young. I still got time for now. I can still, pursue this later on if it came to it again. So I can relate to, your parents teaching you a lesson, and I think that's a learning journey that I'm going through right now.
Yeah, and like I said to you before, I think the sacrifice you made to look after your parents is something I highly respect.
Thank you.
I fundamentally feel, I sometimes feel saddened by the lack of deep relationships that young people tend to have with their parents. I think it's one of the most special relationships in the world. And especially in our culture, is that in the Asian culture, a lot of the times, because of the difference in language, sometimes the kids grow up not able to speak mum and dad's native tongue, which then really they're not able to connect at a deep level. And I think that is such a shame, because it's one of the most special relationships. And of course, there are some people who look, I think we're lucky in that, we love our parents, and some people don't love their parents for good reason, because sometimes their parents may be abusive, they may be monsters, for example.
Yeah.
But this is to the people who, to the parents are good people. It's really a special relationship.
Yeah, and that's something that me and my parents don't really communicate that much, to be honest. They communicate through food. I have you eaten yet?
Yeah. I remember seeing a short film from Wong Fu, on YouTube.
Yeah. Have you eaten yet? That's how they show love.
Yeah. I mean, the way Asian people say I love you is, like you said, have you eaten yet?
Have you eaten yet?
Yeah.
So that's a profound one. So when you started your entrepreneurship journey, how did you go about? How did you start it before it wasn't even a thing, right?
Yeah. Well, again, I started it in my early teens as well, and I was never academic. So when I was at school and they would kind of use the academic structure to give me a value of an A, B, C, or a D, I came up with generally, I'd B minus C. I wasn't a terrible student. It wasn't D or an F. But again, when I compared my B minus or my C plus to my other friends, I was at the bottom of the ladder. And because of that kind of negative reaction from the academic system, I went, oh, I'm not good at this, so I'll try something else. So then at the age of 13, I often tell this story. I really wanted to find a girlfriend when I was 13. I've always in my life valued love. And I've always wanted to find a girlfriend. To me, love is one of the big values in my life. And I remember asking my dad, I go, Dad, how do I find a girlfriend? What do I do? And I'll never forget this line from my dad. My dad looks at me very intensely and he goes, no money, no honey, man. Right? Classic Asian line. And I was like, oh, okay. So then that kind of sparked my journey in entrepreneurship, because watching my dad and his brothers continually build businesses and whatnot, I had the entrepreneurial bug. It's probably in my DNA. So then there was a website called eBay that was slowly emerging.
Yeah.
I remember buying MP3 players off eBay, and then I'd sell them to my friends. And I'd make a pretty big margin on the MP3 players. And then on top of this, I made more money because they didn't know how to download music. And this was the era of Napster. So I was downloading music off Napster, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Five, the classics.
So this was an upsell.
Yeah, this was an upsell. And then I didn't charge much. I was like, look, if you want me to download new music, there were other kids selling CDs at schools, and they were selling CDs for like $10, $15, $20, right? I was like, no. Buy an MP3 player off me, recurring revenue. I'll change the music on there for you for $5 every time. No worries. So then I had this little business going at school, and I was just like, this is amazing. I am making so much money. Every week at school, I'd be the kid that, I bought my friends because I had money, so I'd buy them lunch. They weren't my friends because they liked me. They were my friends because I'd buy them Cokes, and I'd buy them pies and pasties and sausage rolls. And it was fantastic, because that's where I felt valued. That's where I felt like I had made something of myself. Mm-hmm. So to me, that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. And that continued all through high school. So I moved high schools 5 times.
Wow.
Just because, kids didn't pay me. I didn't know what to do. So I gave the school bullies money, and I said, get my money. They just didn't know how to deal with accounts receivable. Did it Soprano style. So then I moved schools. But every time I moved schools, it got more intense. You know, I started bringing in hair dryers. At the age of 19, I asked my dad for about $40,000, and he was his life savings, and he handed it to me. And I flew to China in Guangzhou, and I went to the Canton Fair because I was like, I'm not going to buy from these middlemen anymore. I'm going to go direct to the source. So there's a fair called the Canton Fair, and I went there and I bought a container of electronics and bought it back and started my own electronics store.
Wow. That's epic.
Yeah. And it was, you know, I can tell you more details. I mean, I remember going to this shopping center, and we couldn't afford rent for the main big stores they had. So we're like, why don't you give us a corner, just a corner of the walkway, and monetize that? You should be monetizing this corner. You could monetize that to us and charge us a cheaper amount of rent, because that's not actually a facility right now. So we built into the corner cupboards so that we could stand there and display our electronics and sell our goods.
Wow.
John, it was, to me, there is nothing more pleasurable and nothing more exciting than buying low and selling high.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
I got that buzz. And just going back to your story about when you was 13, you was looking for a girlfriend. I'm glad now I'm not the only one that was at that age doing that same thing.
Yeah.
Because at about 12, 13, I was always chasing girlfriend love. Like you. Love was heavily in my values. But obviously back then I didn't know. All I wanted was a girlfriend, just to be, I think, someone to understand or love me.
I wanted someone to love me. Yes.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. There was someone to love me because I was the only child in my family.
Yeah, and just to be clear too, I mean, for me, and I think for you too, it goes beyond just wanting sex, right? It was beyond just the hormonal desires of wanting to be with someone.
It wasn't even.
It was really about being loved. Yeah.
It wasn't even about sex back, obviously, at that age. It was more just like connection.
Yeah.
Connect with another soul in a deeper connection way.
Yeah, and I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I was a horny young man. I mean,
we all were, right?
We all were. I mean, don't look at us and go, "Oh, wow, they're such angels." Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But a huge part of it was, like you said, I just wanted someone to love, and I wanted someone to love me.
It was that connection, that deep connection. I think that's what we were yearning for. Obviously, looking back at it now, it'd be like, "Oh, wow, that is what we was looking for." But now,
back we're romanticizing it. Whereas when you actually look back at it, you're actually, nope, just a horny bastard. Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so your journey into entrepreneurship.
That was the crazy journey. Yeah.
Was there at the time how did you deal with challenges? And did you have negative associations and things like, you know, that just kind of halt you in your tracks? Or did you just
Absolutely.
It was just easy flipping?
No, it wasn't easy at all. I mean, as you know, right? In the Asian culture, whether you're Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, whatever kind of Asian culture you are from, I think not even just the Asian culture, but a lot of ethnic cultures, we really value education as number one.
Doctor, lawyer, accountant.
Yeah, and because of that kind of desire, when I followed the entrepreneurial path, my parents understood, which was always really nice. However, my community didn't understand. People in my friendship groups, their parents would judge me. I remember dating a girl back in high school, and her parents were thoroughly disappointed in me. I remember every time I went to their house, I could feel how ashamed they felt of me, how disappointed. I mean, they never looked at me with eyes of, I accept you. It was always kind of like, there's that boy, you know, and it's going to ruin my daughter's life. And it's just, I always had that weight over my shoulder within my community. Wherever I went, I was a failure. And not only did I bear that, my parents had to bear that. Because wherever they went, people would be like, oh, shouldn't let our children be friends with their kid. So it was a burden that I didn't carry alone. It was a burden that I knew my parents were carrying as well, you know, which I only can see now in hindsight.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that my parents didn't let that burden cause them to put pressures on me to be different, to be academic. Because if they did, I would have rebelled and I would not have had the relationship that I have with my parents.
Yeah.
So that was a form of hardship. And then obviously the hardships of failure. You know, just because I wanted to buy low, sell high, didn't mean I could buy low, sell high. Sometimes I buy low and sell lower, you know, and the tragedies of entrepreneurship, every shape and form of it happened to me. You know, selling that electronics store, it wasn't smooth. There was an organization called Akbar that very quickly found out about what I was doing. I mean, we were making I remember the first week we made $7,000-8,000 a week, and I'd hire my university friends to work for me. Thriving business initially, but then Akbar came along. It was a consumer affair group, and they came and they said, listen, you're selling stuff that is not CE approved, which means it can, you know, electronically, it can just kind of light on fire and burn people's homes down. I was like, oh, crap. So then if I wanted the Chinese suppliers to do this, they're like, oh, we can do this, you know, certificate for you, but it's going to cost you 250,000.
Yeah.
I was like, where am I going to get 250,000 from? I'm freaking 19. So, you know, so many of these, and the dangers of jail time if I continued and all this stuff. So we had so many things come our way.
How did you deal with those challenges and those kind of like setbacks?
I stopped selling them in shopping centers and I started selling them on the side.
But you had to adapt.
Well, I had so much stock, I didn't know what to do. But again, it's just, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I felt sick to the stomach. I felt depressed. I felt like a failure again. And I felt like, oh, maybe entrepreneurship isn't for me. Maybe I'm destined to be just a bloody loser in every area of my life. So, you know, you go through the emotional roller coaster. But because my mom and my dad are, you know, they're grassroots entrepreneurs. You know, they always told me, you know, always in my head, it's embedded in my head that adversity is the training that makes one great. You know, and as cheesy as it sounds, and I know many people nowadays are lactose intolerant, so we have to be careful with the amount of cheesiness, but it's really true. It's every bit of adversity that I faced. At the time, I didn't like to hear that from my parents, but now in hindsight, Jono, I feel so much stronger as a human being because of the adversity that I went through. And now as a parent, I have to battle that too, because now I've got a baby boy who's 3 years old and is a toddler now. It's not so much of a baby, but then I'm like, I'm trying to create such a comfortable life for him. But is this a good thing? Do I want to raise a child in a safe environment? Or do I want to raise a strong child? You know, as Jordan Peterson says in his book, 12 Rules of Life, do we want to raise safe children or strong children? And to me, I want to raise strong children. So it's really forced me to change the way I look at even raising my own child, because my parents never gave me everything. They made me work my ass for it. Like I work my ass off for stuff.
Yeah, same. I had to work everything that I got for myself. I had to work through and find my own way of getting it, because obviously at the time I didn't realize, you know, they had card debts and all that. So but then again, I always didn't want to burden them financially with stuff that I wanted as material funds and entertainments and, you know, Lego and whatnot that I buy. But it's just like, so, and you know, getting the material stuff like cars and stuff is just like, yeah, I'd rather just earn it for myself. So then I feel like I got it under control in a way, or I had my shit together, if that, you know, without burdening them.
Yeah,
so that's always something that's in my mind. But adversity, definitely agree with you. Definitely a trait that a lot of people seem to not face or not be willing to face adversity, I would say. I think for probably like our background with the
I mean what you just made me think of something. So sorry to interrupt, but it's just, it's not that, I think people just don't, There's a great saying in the African American culture. I think it's from the African American culture because it was an African American who told me this. I was sitting in the car with him, and he was taking me to an event, and he had this line where he says, "It doesn't get good till you get grown," right? And it doesn't get good till you get grown. And he was an older gentleman, and he said, "Too many of you youngsters think that life should get good immediately, but it doesn't. It doesn't get good till you get grown, young man." And it kind of gave insight in that when I was a kid, I just always thought life should be good now. I should be extremely successful now. I should achieve my wildest dreams now. And you truly realize that when simple saying that he told me, but it doesn't get good till I get grown. It's because it doesn't get good till you grow and go through adversity. And that the adversity that you face is the price you have to pay to get good. And I think we genuinely don't understand that the price you have to pay is tough times, challenges, adversity. That's the price you actually have to pay. You have to pay it. It's the entry fee.
Definitely is the entry fee. I think it's because everyone wants the instant gratification, right? Everything is now.
I'm a victim of that too. So I say this, but then I'm an absolute victim of this too. So
it is just literally now. Let's make it happen now. I'm a huge one for that too. So
I can give you a great example. In America, Amazon, when you order stuff, it comes in same day. Sometimes you order it in the morning, it comes by 9 p.m. I ordered a bunch of gear for my studio here in South Australia, and in Australia, the gear takes 2 weeks. And I was like a baby on the floor. My hands were in the air, and I was like, what? Where are we? I mean, are we in the Stone Ages? And it was funny because then I saw that part of me come out. I was like, wow, I thought I was over that, but guess not. Still a child.
Ours is latest 1 day or 2 days.
See, that's ridiculous. That's fantastic. I couldn't believe how long it took for some of the things for Amazon to arrive in Australia.
That is quite a long time. That's normally crying time now.
I would say it's slightly offensive. So yeah, I mean that's a huge part of growing up, was going through all of that training, but it really did prepare me mindset wise, and I think it's funny because I was coming home from the US, so I'd made the decision to leave my kind of career in the US and seek more happiness in life and come home. And then when I came home, obviously now during the COVID times, I had to do 2 weeks of quarantine in a hotel room and then 2 weeks of quarantine at home. And I was complaining to my mum about it. I was saying, "Oh, Mum, this is terrible. I don't know what I'm going to do." And my mum told me, "We're at a refugee camp for 2 years. You need to put things into perspective, boy." And just like within a second, the perspective shift occurred.
Wow, that is a huge perspective shift.
Yeah, I was complaining that I was about to be in a luxury hotel for 2 weeks and meals delivered to the room and comfy beds to sleep on. Mum and Dad were on a refugee island for years off the coast of Malaysia called Pulau Bidong. So It's like, yeah, okay, yep. And I think sometimes we all just need to be reminded so that we can see it from a different vantage point. Sometimes when we just see our own suffering, I feel that we make it such a big deal. And until someone else comes along and go, hey, actually, that's actually pretty good. You've got it pretty good. You forget.
I always remind myself how lucky I am to be in the position that I am to do what I do. Because I know for a fact, I went to South Africa for some of my self-awareness spiritual training a couple of years back. And I saw the poverty that they had to go through and live through, but how happy they were playing football with a can of Coke that was, into pieces, literally. But they were so happy playing football with it. And I was just like,
oh gosh,
someone would just trade places with me in an instant. So I'm very, very grateful and blessed every day to do what I do and wake up with what I have. So I always remind myself that someone will literally snap my arm off to trade places with where I am.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I really wish, Jono, that how there's the tooth fairy and there's all these different types of fairies we tell our children about. I wish as adults there was a bitch slapping fairy. That every time we start complaining and we start to or I wish there was a fairy that came around and just bitch slapped us in the face. Because I think, like you said, we need those reminders. And when we don't seek out those experiences like you sought out your experience, we then get into these ruts where we become self-loathing and we become we feel so sorry for ourselves. And if you don't actively seek out those experiences like you did, then we stay stuck in these states of mind where we just kind of, if you summed it up in a sound, it's like, meh. It's you kind of just, you pity yourself, and
it's that comfort bubble, right? You don't know what's out there until you get out of it.
That's why I feel seeking out those experiences are so powerful. And again, to borrow from the wisdom of those I listen to often, it's like you've got to seek discomfort. Not only do you or should you be okay when you experience it, we should seek it out. And I'm not saying, it's not like my parents went through a war in Vietnam. It's not like I'm going to create a war and then put my son in it and go, there you go, adversity. No, it's not about that. But to me, there's so many forms of discomfort. And for me, one of the forms of discomfort that I want to create for myself is like, you can exercise. You can exercise.
Exercising. You hate exercising. I know that one.
Absolutely hate it. There's nothing enjoyable about it. But these people who are like, this makes me feel great. I'm like, this makes me feel awful.
I remember you posting on Instagram, like you was like, doing the weights and all those, and I just kept tagging you every time I'm at the gym as well. I'm just like, Vin, keep going.
I am not an inspirational person when it comes to fitness. I tell you that right now, because every time I do it, I'm like, this makes me want to vomit. I hate this. But to me, it's a way of me introducing discomfort into my life once every 2 days is what I'm sticking to right now. But then there's other forms. I'm not necessarily, again, I told you, not an academic person. So to me, I push myself to read. I push myself to really think through something that I've read, as opposed to reading it and going, I have no idea what that means. Let's just keep going. When I meet those opportunities where it's really difficult, and I'm reading, I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that word means. Then I'll actually look it up on the dictionary.com, So to me, there's multiple ways. I mean, one way that I'm quite proud of, that I not only put on myself, but my team as well, is I always say to them, every time I run, say, a virtual masterclass or in-person workshop, when we run it again, I go, what can we do to make this 5% better? Mm-hmm. It has to be 5% better every time we do something. So to me, that is a form of diversity. And it sounds weird when you say it's adversity, because set higher goals. That's a form of adversity. Raise your standards. That's a form of adversity. So to me, the way I'm going to introduce adversity into my children's lives is I'm going to push them to set higher goals and have higher expectations of yourself and what you can do for your family, for yourself, and your community. So to me,
that's powerful.
Don't just wait until adversity happens to you. Find opportunities to introduce it into your life. And I'm not saying this to be inspirational. I'm saying this just because adversity is how we grow. Adversity is how we have more impact. It's what builds character and what makes you a wonderful person to be around. I've been around people who I know have had no adversity into their lives, and I can't relate to them. And a lot of people can't relate to them, and they live in a little bit of a bubble. So to me, if you don't have any adversity, find ways to introduce some and build character.
Speaking of building character, your public speaking, how did you get into public speaking?
Brilliant segue, by the way. Love your segue ability. It's just so seamless. I admire it. How did I get into it? So I won an entrepreneurial award in 2013. Haven't done anything that amazing since. But after winning that award, they asked me to speak around for free, and to inspire other entrepreneurs. And I was like, at the time, what am I going to talk about? I have you want me to talk for 15 minutes? Now you can't shut me up. But that was my first experience in speaking, was these little speeches for schools, for entrepreneurial organizations. And then when I spoke, Jono, I experienced something I never experienced before. And it was, a sense of fulfillment.
Mhm.
I again, one of my biggest pillars coming from an entrepreneurial family was wealth creation. And I thought there was only one kind of bank, and it was the financial bank. I didn't know there was such thing as a fulfillment bank. I never thought to you know, put deposits into the fulfillment bank. So then when I spoke, it was terrible, by the way. But then these people started coming up to me and they said, "Wow, Vin, that was really inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. You really shifted my mind here, and I can't." I was like, "What? What? Wow, this feels really good in my heart." And then that's when I went, you know what? I want to pursue something that makes me feel this good, not only from a financial point of view, but I want to feel good here in my heart.
Mm.
So I pursued speaking, and I thought, wow, could this be a career? And then I purchased a bunch of books online and mapped out the speaking career path and kind of blueprinted it. Because as a magician, my mindset is everything that looks amazing, there is a method behind the madness.
Yes.
So as magicians, we form this belief and this mindset that nothing truly is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
That everything has a method behind it.
Of course.
So with that kind of mindset, I mapped out the speaking world and pursued it with intensity.
Yeah, and I remember you started publishing on YouTube as well. And that's when I started following you.
Yep. Like I said, you and the other 250 people. That's amazing.
But it's been like I learned so many golden nuggets of you from your content and your wisdom that you share, even though you say they're not yours because you say you regurgitate, or you call them, was that the biggest fraudulent book in your I can't
Yeah,
remember.
when I write a book, the book will be called, literally, it'll be called The Most Fraudulent Book Ever Written.
Yes.
Well, it's because the lessons that I've learned, Jono, I claim none of them to be mine, in that they aren't. I'm not this unique, brilliant individual or thought leader that came up with all of these brilliant ideas himself. Is that I love learning from other people and then remixing them together. I love doing that. It's how I learn. I make no claim. I am no Einstein, but definitely not. It's why I love Henry Ford. I love his story of his life. You know, there's that kind of famous story where he went to a lecture and he brought all of his experts with him, and then people would ask him questions, and he goes, "Oh, Julie, could you answer that question? You know the answer to that." And then people go, "Well, wait, Henry, we thought you were this brilliant, smart man. You're actually quite stupid." And he goes, "No, well, yeah, I am stupid, but I just know where to find the answers."
Mm-hmm.
So to me, again, I'm not the brilliant mind that sometimes people can easily perceive me to be, because I'm not. I just know where to find the answers.
Yeah, that's something that I've been following and been doing myself as well. It's just learning from all these experts and mentors and guides and people like yourselves, and just taking what works for me. Because everyone's got like different frameworks and different structures and different blueprints, different models, and it's like, yeah, but that works for you, but may not work for me in that similar way. I have to readapt or rejig it and piece it together and fit my style in and do things my way, and doesn't do the same way, and the same results not going to be the same, obviously.
And that's what you have. And until you know who you are, we tend to not have the self-confidence to say that this lesson isn't for me. You know, I can tell you an example for me. So early in my entrepreneurial career, one of the figures that really inspired me was Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
Right. And at the time, I didn't have much self-confidence in myself. So I listened to everything that Gary said. And I did everything that Gary told me to do. I did everything. I, worked ridiculous hours, and I did all these different things that he kind of, shared. And until I started to build self-confidence, I went, wait, hang on. That's great for Gary. He's a great person. I mean, what he's been able to do is amazing. But now I have the self-confidence to go, but that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
There are bits and pieces of what Gary says that I really like, and I'll take those. And the rest, you can keep that, mate. I don't want any of those things there. So as you become more certain in who you are, as you build more self-confidence, you go through life now choosing strategically what you want to learn from others, as opposed to just taking everything. Oh, just give me everything. I think that's very dangerous, because then I started living a life that made me truly unhappy. Because I'm not Gary. I'm not. I think Gary is somewhat of a unicorn, and I'm not that kind of unicorn, So again, it's go on the journey of self-discovery. I think it's very important to work out who you are. And the sooner we can work that out, the sooner you will have the courage and the confidence to live the way you want. And you won't be so easily swayed by the next biggest fad,
Curious. Well, how old was you when you decided to go on your self-discovery journey, like really deep within?
27.
Oh, same age as me. That's when I
Oh,
was.
really? What? How old are you, Jono?
When I was 27.
What are you? How old are you?
I'm 32. I will be 33 end of this month.
Okay, I don't even know how old I am. I'm 32, turning 33 at the end of this year.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
About the same age.
About the same age, yeah. So I decided 27 as well. Self-discovery journey. I just went for that deep dive and discover who am I, what am I here to do, what is I truly stand for, and what am I here to create. And that was that.
I think that is an ongoing journey. It's not a journey that just because I said when I was 27 means I discovered at 27.
No.
It's something, the analogy I use is like a satellite. A satellite readjusts its positioning every single second. 0.2 degrees to the left, 0.34 degrees to the right, and it just keeps adjusting. And I feel that that's kind of like who we are in life. We need to continually adjust. And I know you've seen this video, but we need to recalibrate ourselves as we grow. What are my values now compared to when I was 27? Drastically different.
Yes.
When I was 27, it was all about making money.
Yeah.
Now for me, it's a lot of it is about happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it is about family and experiences and joy.
Completely like me, just like what I've been going through. It was at first going through the material stuff. It was like, oh, I want the big car, I want the big house and all this. And then it's like, really? Do I really want those? It's like, no, I just want a loving family with my fiance and, have a pet dog and have our own children. And that's it really. And then do my, digital leadership strategist stuff and on the side. And I'm quite content with that and just make a difference, a little influence, impact, or inspire some other people. I'm quite cool with that, and maybe do some public speaking now and then. I think, but other than that, it's like, what am I chasing really? On what am I here to create?
See, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And when I hear that, Jono, I'm very happy for you. I just, for the point of our conversation, I look at myself as a leader when I was 27. If I was 27 and I heard you say that, I'd try to convince you otherwise.
Yeah. Same.
Because when someone else shares their dream, when I was younger and I didn't know who I was and I didn't have confidence in myself, anytime anyone shared their way of life with me, I see it as a threat. I see it as, well, no, I don't think living like that is right. I think you should be going for your hardest and working your full potential and seeing what you can achieve and not settling for the, don't be, don't get comfortable kind of thing. But when you become more sure of who you are and you become okay with who you are, you let other people be whoever they want to be. One of the most brilliant byproducts of being more certain of who you are is that you're okay with other people doing what they want. So to me, when you share that, that's bloody beautiful. And then there might be another person out there who's listening going, no, I believe in, doing this 18-hour days and, 8-day weeks or whatever. That's great. You do it. That's awesome. That's okay. And then to me, there's different stages of life. I had a stage of life like that. So to me, there's less judgment. And I find that that's such an easier way to live life. Whereas I feel like when I was living life as younger in my late 20s, I used to just go around judging like a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas now I'm just, whatever floats your boat, mate.
As long as you're happy. That's the...
And not harming other people, if we can add another caveat to that. Yeah.
As long as you're happy and not harming others,
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, as long as you're not damaging your integrity and all those, that's cool. But
absolutely, and it just allows you to move through life with a lot more grace.
So much peace within you now, isn't there? There's a big difference.
Again, it comes from my parents in that I've learned, and again, not only my parents. I mean, Jordan Peterson has been a huge influence on my life as of late. I've read his book now twice, and I've learned to be kinder to myself, Jono. I'm just a lot nicer to myself. Whereas before I was very mean to myself, and it's one of his rules in his book 12 Rules of Life. I used to be very mean to myself. I used to treat myself terribly. Whereas now I'm like, I've been trying to build this studio, and I look at myself before. I would have been so hard on myself, like, oh, you didn't get this way, you didn't get that right, you drilled the damn wrong hole. What the hell's wrong with you? And now I'm just like, it's okay. I mean, I haven't gone full yogi. I haven't gone full yogi. I can tell you that. I still kick my ass every now and then, but it's just now I'm just like, you know what? It's all right. Let's slow down. Let's enjoy the process of building out the studio. Let's just stop today after 3 hours and let's go just hang on the playground with my son.
Yeah, I was setting up my new setup this last week or so.
It looks great. It looks great.
It's I think it's there pretty much.
I love the blue light. It just looks good.
I'll show you after what they are. And you can try and look for them afterwards.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, it was just setting up, and it was like, oh yeah, this wasn't right, that wasn't right, maybe the lighting isn't right, and then the iMac decided to blow up last week as well, and overheat and all those. I just had to take it apart. I was like, I need this to work. It's like, I've got interviews to get people on podcasts. This needs to work. I was like, it's okay, just go with the flow and calm down. And like you, I used to be very heavy. Yeah, there's a lot of negative talk that the things that we talk to ourselves that we wouldn't speak to our friends, right? We wouldn't talk to our friends like that.
That's exactly what Jordan Peterson says. Yeah, absolutely. And so I've just learned to, I think it's the combination of learning to be kinder to yourself and treating yourself like a best friend.
Yeah.
But then also lowering expectations a little bit for me. And I mean, this year with COVID-19, I think it's very important that we lower expectations a little, and that's a part of the process of being kinder to yourself. And then also just allowing things to take a little longer and being okay with that, which is an essence of patience. So to me, I've become more patient. I'm less, except with Amazon delivery. I'll never be patient with that. But in other areas of my life, I've learned to be a bit more patient and okay with things taking a bit longer. It's like when I was transitioning my live workshops to virtual. It took a while.
That was amazing to watch how quickly you did that.
Oh, you thought that was quick? Okay, good. Thank you. That's quite pleasant to hear.
Obviously, from my perspective, from the outside, it felt quick. Like from when COVID happened to when you dropped all your events to speaking, and then you quickly was like, "Here's my live workshops." I was just like, "Well, that was quick." Like it kind of like flew by in a way for me, just following that journey. So yeah, it was just amazing to see you go through that so quickly.
Yeah, no, thank you. Also, on the note of being really kind to myself, I need to go to the bathroom. Do you mind if I just quickly duck out? You can edit that out afterwards.
Absolutely, go for it.
All right, thank you. Sorry, brother. And
Right.
back.
No worries.
Cool. All right.
So
we're talking about the whole. Yeah,
quickly
I guess.
you adapted back onto your online workshops, your masterclasses.
Yeah. That was when COVID-19 hit. It was around early March. I was in the US. I was in Southern California, and I did my last event out in, I think it was Colorado, and in Denver. I was in Denver, and I remember I was at an event. I did the event, and then the news of COVID was around, started to really hit. I was like, I wonder if that's going to impact my industry. I know it impacts a lot of restaurants and stuff. I wonder if it's going to impact the events industry. I was very naive, and I was like, nah, surely it won't. I had an entire year of events mapped out already. It was going to be a great year for my speaking business. And then within a week of that event, doing that last event, my entire diary was wiped clean. And then, I was like, oh, look, let's try to be, all zen about it. Let's go yogi. And it didn't work. Then I panicked, because at the heart of it all, I am an entrepreneur. I am a business owner too. So then I started to panic. I started to get a lot of anxiety. And I remember this one moment. It was about lunchtime. I said to my wife, hey, I just need to go lay down. And I was laying in the spare bedroom in my house in Southern California, and I felt like I had started to have a panic attack.
Wow.
I literally just felt like, oh, it's just hard to breathe. And I had to focus so much on my breath to get myself calm, because I was panicking. I started to freak out. And then I'm kind of grateful I kind of write stuff on my walls all over the place. But I had this one Stoic quote that I really love. And it's that there's only two things you can control, and it's your thoughts and your actions.
Mm-hmm.
So, step by step, I just started to control the thoughts, and, as opposed to them going all crazy on me, and there was a lot of negative self-talk and whatnot. But I started to go, well, just start thinking, just start writing, just start willing the mind to the paper and start writing the things you could control. And then that's when the idea of the virtual studio came about. I started to write down, what I can control is I have taught online before. I had a school online teaching magic. I do have experience in this area. I know how to play this game. And then I started writing all the things I could control. And then I followed those things I could control that I wrote down with actions. Went out to video store, bought a bunch of video gear, set up the virtual studio. So to me, instead of rushing that process, I gave myself a month to set up.
Mm-hmm.
So within a month, I learned how to use cameras, streaming software, switchboards, lighting. I learned all of that. But again, it shows how much we can achieve when we're A, kinder to ourselves, B, a little more patient, and just C, have the mindset that we live in a world now where you can learn anything. I watched 4 YouTube videos and I understood lighting.
Yeah, same. I did that last week. Also the last few weeks. During that research period.
Yeah.
I'm sure on YouTube, it was like lighting, streaming, and then some popular people come up, right? And you're just like, his face comes up quite often. Let's check out his videos. And it's like, some of them actually, they're really good.
But that's right. I mean, just when we did this, I haven't really done much stuff on StreamYard. So you've just quickly exposed me to something new that I'm now going to YouTube and go, how to use StreamYard. Do you know what I mean? It's like we live in a world now where innovation is no longer as difficult as it once was. I mean, I'm in the event industry. This is one of the oldest industries ever. Everyone comes together. There's a speaker that goes on stage, and we just can rotate that speaker. Then there's breakout rooms, there's lunch rooms. It hasn't changed.
Yeah,
it hasn't changed for so many years, and I feel like finally we have an opportunity where we're put into a state of forced innovation that's going to force us to create something new, a whole new experience, and that's why I really love doing virtual masterclasses, because I just did one last week for a class of students from all over the world. We had people from Germany, from Singapore, from Malaysia, from America, from all over Australia. And you know what? When I finished my class, you know what, Jono? I'm 12 steps away from my son and my wife having breakfast together.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. That is something that I would strive to have is do some work, and then be a few steps away from my family and just do that. That is amazing.
And let's add a few little trinkets. I've got a nice, we go out to the playground. We've got our breakfast, our coffee. We've got a tiny little Bluetooth speaker, and you play some nice, happy music. Beatles, choice. It's the obvious choice. And it's just, we get to live in a world now where, before this, Jono, every gig I did was 2 whole days away from the family.
Yeah.
Now I'm 12 steps. Changed my life, man.
That's amazing. That is beautiful. And it's just credit to the work that you've done throughout these years. I've followed your journey, obviously, so I know how much flying and graft you do, from like overnight flights and rushing from one venue to another in 20 minutes and back to the airport to catch your flight and all those. And just like, it feels like I'm having a panic attack just watching you do that.
Yeah. But I genuinely do love speaking. It is something, but the travel made me fall out of love with it.
Yeah.
The being away from the family made me fall out of love with it. And to me, as amazing as the speaking career is, I know so many people are pursuing a speaking career and everything. I've done it. I've been there. I've been able to do it. I feel like I've done it rather well and built a fairly solid career. But the sacrifices that I had to make, I'm no longer willing to make to maintain that career. I will find other ways to have my impact. And like I told my managers and all my speaking kind of people that represent me, I'm going to do about 10 events a year at most. At most. I was doing 80 plus events a year prior to this. And I'm, no more. I have I have so many values in my life. So I went through a process. A really great friend of mine named Ali Tarai helped me map out my life. And we mapped out my life in a process that he kind of calls lifestyle design, right? And we mapped out my entire life in accordance with my values. And it's a very, very intricate process. It took us weeks to create this. And now I can see my life in a doc. And it's brilliant. I see what each value means, and under each value is also KPIs, and we track those KPIs on a daily basis. And beyond that, there's also what those values actually mean. I want to be a good dad. Okay, cool. What does that actually mean pragmatically, action-wise? So I've wrote those things down. I've gone through the rabbit hole of what does that word actually mean of being a great dad, and I mapped it out. It means spending time with him right now. It means spending 45 minutes a day towards this intentional play. And again, what does being a good husband mean? It means that once every week, intentionally, we have to sit down and talk. Intentionally, we have to cook together. So again, it forces you to identify, what do you mean by saying this? Because I find that we fall into the trap of being generalists. What are your values? Family. Of course, family. But what does it really mean? And when you really are forced to go into the weeds of that, it has given me peace of mind like nothing else. Because before, I used to always wonder if I'm being a good husband. I wonder if I'm being a good dad. I wonder if I'm being a good friend or a good son. And after creating this doc and holding myself accountable to these things, you go, no, I know I am. And a part of that, peacefulness, hopefully that you sense, it comes from, hey, I know I'm doing good. I know I am. Because I see it with clarity and I'm ensuring that I'm doing it.
That's amazing. That's definitely measurable as well. Something that you could just be like, yeah, I'm doing this, so I know I'm on the right track.
And simplest example people can relate to, I weigh myself every day. Right. And during quarantine, during the 2 weeks in the hotel, I didn't weigh myself every day because there were no scales. Guess who gained 4 kilos? This guy.
Same.
Yeah, this guy. Yeah. but again, it just speaks to the point that you can't improve what you don't measure, right? As simple as that. Like, to me, I had my weight under control for like a year and a half, 2 years, and then 2 weeks of not measuring weight. So then the question then is, you have to ask yourself, how many other areas of our life are we not measuring? Especially those personal areas of our lives. Sure, you have KPIs with your professional career and your entrepreneurial journey, but do you have KPIs for family, your best friend, mum and dad, your children? I think those things are important.
Those are definitely important. I think a lot of people aren't measuring those things. That's why there's, like you said, the fulfillment factor, right?
Yeah, and I always like to add this as well, is that, and I fall off the bandwagon all the time. It's just that I've learned how to get back on the bandwagon faster. Instead of falling off the bandwagon and going, oh man, for 3 months and, therefore putting on another 5 kilos, I fall off the bandwagon in 2 weeks. I go, you know what? I'm getting back on it. Control what I eat, exercise more regularly, push the sessions a bit harder, and the weight's falling off. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's not about, I'm going to stick, I listen to a couple of motivational speakers and a couple of pretty hardcore motivators, Jocko and bloody, what's his name? The Navy SEAL guy what's his name? He wrote the book. They kind of Goggins. Yes.
David
right.
Goggins. I met him.
David Goggins. And when I listen to them, they're like, take no days off. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna take some days off. It's all right. I have a different philosophy.
I bumped into him at the hotel elevator. That he was doing an event. He was speaking there,
right?
But he was due to speak on day 2, and I was only there for day 1 because my mentor was speaking on day 1 on the same stage.
Yeah.
But happened, like, my mentor was like, "Oh, come up to the bar and we will have a drink before we all set off. Just chill it for the evening." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I came up the elevator. I take a selfie with David Goggins on a banner downstairs. I'm just like, I'm not going to see this guy anyway, so I might as well take a selfie with this poster and pretend I saw him. Go up the elevator. Who did I see right in front of me? David Goggins. I'm just like,
that's brilliant.
Could I take a quick selfie? It's like, yeah, sure.
That's amazing, man.
I was just like, law of attraction there, right there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. But that again, like, he's an example, right? He's an example of someone he's very strict. Like, he's someone who I don't imagine falling off the bandwagon often. I very often I fall off the bandwagon, but I think it's not about not falling off. It's rather about learning how to get back on faster.
But so being okay with it as well.
Yeah, being okay with it, and just know it's part of the process. Like, David Goggins, again, understand David Goggins or Jocko. They're unicorns. And you might not be a unicorn, and that's okay, because I'm not a unicorn either. So I think what's important to realize, because I used to demoralize myself the moment I fall off the bandwagon. The moment I fall off an exercise regime, I'm like, oh, I've done it. I didn't train today. I trained every day for the last 3 months, and I didn't train today. You know what? Stuff it. Never training again. So I think the point is not falling off. The point is falling off and going, hey, that's cool. Take a day off. Jump back on tomorrow or next week. It's all right. As long as you get back on. And every time you do it, try to minimize the number of days it takes to get back on the bandwagon in every sense, emotionally, physically, business-wise. I mean, everything. I think it's just about just not being so rigid. But at the same time being rigid. So it's kind of that paradox.
Okay, just a quick, I'm aware of time as well. What would you say what would you advise those that are going through this digital leadership process or entrepreneurship journey? How would you advise them to, if they was to get started, or if they're already starting, what's the factor to look out for and be aware?
All right. Well, if you haven't started, then my thought to you would be, but again, I'm no expert in anything really except communication. So I these are just thoughts. By no means are they recommendations. I would say, if you haven't started, you'll never be ready. You'll never get to a place where you feel absolutely ready to take the leap. You just won't. It doesn't exist. It's a facade. It's an illusion, if you would. So just do things before you're ready, and understand that that's normal. And no one does things when they're ready. They always do it before they're ready. And you will have to do the same. The people who are already on the journey, I'll borrow a quote from Steve Martin that I know Jono knows this, but this is what I suggest you use as a North Star if you're creating a service or a product. And it's very simple. Steve Martin says it best. Be so good they can't ignore you. So regardless of what you do, don't worry about all the things you can't control. The things you can control is being so good that the opportunities, the promotions, they cannot ignore you. If you've got a workshop that you run that's similar to me, if you've got a product that you have, work on it and make it so good that people cannot ignore it. That's something you have absolute control over. That's what I'd say.
Awesome. That's amazing. And if people wanted to find out more about you, where can they go?
They can find me on social media. Just ask Vin, AskVinh. If you want to join me for a communication workshop, just head over to stageworkshop.live. Stageworkshop.live. That's it.
I'll make sure I put the links in the podcast as well and link back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, brother. This was an awesome conversation. You're very good at this.
I really appreciate your time. You've inspired me, and I just really want to say a heartfelt gratitude. Thank you for doing this and taking the time out to be here. It's a huge honor for me. I just really appreciate this. So thank you.
Hey, and from my end as well, you're doing great. You really are.